thanks for being with me. This is an interesting topic which I came across the other day, and I'm going to talk about this because I have actually, as a social worker, worked with some pedophiles over the last 30 years. Not very many, I hasten to add, but I do have an experience of working with these people, understanding a little bit about how they view the world and whether or not I believe they can change. And I'm going to draw firstly from an article that was in the what was it, in the Guardian, I think. So I'm going to draw from this article, which actually prompted me to start talk about this particular issue in relation to pedophilia. Now, the article says Australia has resisted treating pedophiles before they harm children. Now that view has changed. Now, the reality is that yes, we have often chosen to deal with pedophiles by usually trying to catch them prior to offending. So, for example, the amount of pedophiles that are on the dark web, probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people access the dark web to exchange pedophilia information. The federal police got a task force that's set up to challenge that and to find those people and to arrest them. And then there are those people who are committing sexual acts against children as well. And the question really remains: do we want to get to these people before they get to that point, either viewing pornographic literature or behaving in ways which are totally abhorrent? And my view has been for years that pedophilia is one of the most difficult issues in order for people to address. And I've got a couple of examples of that. I worked with a man, for example, who wasn't into uh, engaging in sexual activities with children, but he was engaged in accumulating thousands and thousands of photos of naked children. And he told me that the reason why he was gathering these photos was he found them beautiful. And he had categorized them into certain categories. I can't tell you what they were, but he was obsessed with gathering these photos. He was duly arrested for having pornographic material around child pornography, and but the point that I want to make about him was that he saw it as being okay, that this was okay to have this sense of appreciation, if you like, of young children. He didn't have children, photographs of children in sexual acts, I know, but he did have these photographs. And it was wrong and it was against the law, but his view was that this was something that was quite legitimate for him to be admiring young children's bodies. I find it horrific because it does lead to other behaviours, but he believed that, and he believed wholeheartedly, in fact, that this was an okay thing to do, and particularly told me that he wasn't harming anybody as a result. Well, these photos are taken, people are taking them, they're making money from them. No doubt he bought them as well. So, yes, it's wrong at every possible level. It's wrong. The point I wanted to make, though, was that his thinking was that it was okay. Now, with regard to other pedophiles that I know that I've worked with, one of them in particular was incarcerated for a while, not for very long, but he was incarcerated in a prison whereby there were lots of other pedophiles. And he told me that the other pedophiles that he was housed with got off on talking more and more about their conquest in regard to young children. And I find that absolutely horrific. In other words, they weren't being, pardon me, they weren't looking at the problem and trying to find a solution or seeing it as wrong. They all saw it as being okay, that being together in the one place provided them with an opportunity to talk about their offending, what they'd done and how that impacted kids without any sense of guilt or shame. It's a bit like, though, saying that, I've worked a lot around domestic violence for many years, and I've worked with, as I've said before, worked with thousands of men around that particular issue. And when men justify, or anybody justifies a behaviour which actually harms somebody else, refuses to take responsibility for that behaviour, then they're just not going to move on. They're not going to move on. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that pedophiles can't take responsibility for their behaviour. I'm not suggesting that there could not be a window of opportunity in order to change that behaviour once acknowledged as being harmful. But what I do know is that if you can justify that behaviour in any means, then it is unlikely that you're going to take steps to rectify it. However, there are obviously men out there who recognise they've got an issue around how they view children and are prepared to make whatever changes are required, as this article suggests. And what I want to suggest to us today is that we think about, if men do admit, and it's not always men, but primarily it's men who behave this way, but if men choose to identify that they have a problem, can they receive the appropriate treatment? And this is, so I read a bit of this article. It's a very long article, actually. I'll put the link below so that you can also refer to it if you like. We can't just shun perpetrators or people at risk of becoming perpetrators and hope they go away, an expert psychologist says. And to me, there's an element of truth in that. We can't continue to say that this is a problem that we can only deal with by incarcerating people. Effort needs to be made in order to be able to understand this phenomenon, to work with people so that we can perhaps address it and find those people that are prepared to work with them. Now, I know many years ago I worked with a social worker who was working in corrections, and some of the things she would tell me about working with these pedophiles and some of their behaviours while they were working in front of her are absolutely appalling and horrific, and just indicate that they were people that certainly were not prepared to change their behaviour. In her soundproof cubicle in a small Melbourne office, Dean Nichols answers another call from a pedophile who wants to get better. Nicholas will never know the caller's name. He tells her he's repeatedly thought about looking for help, even picking up the phone once or twice before hanging up. Now, for me, this is the primary issue, is that if someone is at least acknowledging that they have a problem and they're prepared to look for help, then that's a good thing. The problem that we have at the moment is that I don't think there are enough services available to men who can actually contact them anonymously, and this is clearly a good service, because at least these people have got someone they can talk to and someone that can get out their feelings about what it is that they're doing. I appreciate that they're not going to identify themselves, because that way the interviewer is obligated under mandatory requirements in order to report the offending. So at least, though, they have a place, I guess, that they can go to and talk. It goes on to say, research shows it takes about a decade from the first age that somebody has a sexual thought or attraction towards a child to the time that they might actually be picked up by the police. So there's a period in which these people are perhaps thinking about offending and actually do offend. So what they're saying is that in that period there is an opportunity to address this particular issue and to have a place that some of these people can go to have these matters addressed. So they also go on to say, I'll just read this bit out to you, victims, academics and perpetrators hope Australia is a tipping point of change. Unlike many of the other countries where governments have for decades financed everything from intensive hospital treatment to circles of healing for pedophiles, Australia has largely been unwilling to treat pedophilia as a mental health problem. Pardon me. So do I see it as a mental health problem? Yes, of course it is. Is it resolvable? Actually, to be quite honest, I don't know. The jury's out for me on that. Um, I'm not suggesting for a moment that there are people who can't solve that problem. I'm more interested also in why it is people have those issues in the first place. And sometimes, and this article goes on to talk about this, that there are men who themselves were sexually abused as children, and that somewhere along the line they've normalised that behaviour, as horrific as it was for them, which means they haven't had the opportunity either to talk about the sexual abuse that occurred to them when they were kids and how that had impacted them. And I'm sure that if they had that opportunity, there might be opportunities for some healing. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's an interesting topic. Do you believe that pedophiles can be healed from that problem, that they can overcome it, or not? Or do you think we need to be doing more to finding out who the pedophiles are and simply locking them up? Let me know what you know in the comments below, and also, if you can, subscribe to my channel. That would be great. Take care, look after yourselves, everybody, and more importantly, be safe.